Sign it, Clara. Everything. His voice was calm, but the look in his eyes was sharp as glass. That was my husband, Mark. We had been married for more than 3 decades, and I thought I knew every side of him. But that night, in front of my own parents and my sister, he became a stranger. He pressed a folder into my hands. Blue leather, heavy, smelling of ink. Just a refinance, he said. My mother nodded quickly. Do not make a scene, Clara. He takes care of things. My father kept staring at the television, silent as always. I opened the folder. The numbers blurred. A loan. Not small. A massive one. Against our home, the place I had scrubbed and loved since the day we moved in. I whispered, why? Mark laughed. Because I said so. Because without me, you are nothing. My sister Lila leaned over my shoulder. Her perfume was sweet and choking. You are lucky, she smirked. Some women do not even have a husband who provides. I set the pen down. My hand was trembling. I am not signing. Mark's smile cracked. His jaw tightened. You are ungrateful, Clara. Always ungrateful. That night I lay awake on the couch. The house I had built with careful hands felt foreign. At dawn the phone rang. A woman's voice from the bank. Mrs. Benton, we are calling to verify the signature from yesterday. My chest tightened. Signature? I did not sign anything. Silence on the line. Typing. Then her voice again, quiet, almost sorry. Our file shows you did. I drove to the bank in my old Buick, still wearing my church dress. My heart thudded with each step. The banker slid a page across the desk. There it was. My name. But it was not my hand. The loops were wrong, the letters rushed. A notary stamp sat in the corner, neat and false. This is not me, I said. He hesitated, then wrote 4 digits on a sticky note. Funds wired here. I knew the number before I wanted to know it. Lila's boyfriend, Larkin. The one who always bragged about helping people with quick loans. The one who never worked, yet drove a new truck every spring. I left the bank with my knees weak and my breath short. At home, Mark texted me. Sign today or we are finished. Another message arrived. Lila. Family helps family. Do not be dramatic. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then I opened a new binder, red and stiff. I wrote across the cover in thick letters. The record. Inside I placed the forged page. Then I began to gather. Bills. Tax returns. Old deeds. My marriage license. Every receipt I had saved for decades. Mark always mocked me for keeping paper. You will drown in files, Clara, he said. But now those files were my lifeline. That evening Mark stormed through the door. His tie was loose, his face red. Did you sign? No. He stepped closer. Too close. You cannot stop this. You bring nothing, Clara. Nothing. I lifted my chin. Bring the notary here. We will sign together. With a camera rolling. His eyes flickered. He muttered, You are impossible. Then he slammed the door. Dinner at my parents' house was no comfort. My mother served meatloaf and advice. Men carry burdens differently, she said. Let him manage. Do not ruin your life over pride. My father nodded without lifting his eyes. I wanted to scream. Pride had not paid the mortgage. Pride had not clipped coupons for 30 years. I had. After dinner, Lila followed me into the driveway. Her heels clicked, her smile too wide. Just sign, she said sweetly. Mark promised once he gets the money, he will pay father's tax debts. We will all be safe. I froze. Father has tax debts? Her smile slipped. Oops. I stared at her, then at the rusted Buick beside me. My life had been built on careful savings, steady work, endless compromise. And they wanted to erase it with one forged page. That night I dug through a shoebox on my closet shelf. Beneath birth certificates and an old photo of my son was an envelope, yellow with age. My grandfather's handwriting, shaky but certain. For when people forget who you are. Inside was a note and a small brass key. And beneath that, a document. A survivorship deed. My house, 47 Brook Lane, granted to me alone, recorded long before I married Mark. My breath caught. My hands shook. All these years the house was not ours. It was mine. At 7 that evening, headlights swept across my driveway. Tires crunched gravel. Lila's laugh carried through the dark. Mark's shadow moved behind her. Larkin's voice rang smooth and smug. I placed the old deed and the key beside the record. When I opened the door, Larkin stepped inside with his notary stamp gleaming in his hand. "Ready to be reasonable, Clara?" he asked. I smiled. "More than ready. But first, read this aloud." I slid my grandfather's deed across the table. The key glinted in the lamplight. Larkin's smirk faltered. And behind him, Mark's face turned white. Mark stood frozen in the doorway. Larkin held the paper in his hand, his lips tightening as he read the words my grandfather had written so long ago. "What is this?" he demanded. "My deed," I said softly. "Recorded before I ever took your name, Mark. This house is mine." Mark's face twitched. "That cannot be true. We have lived here more than 30 years. My name is on everything." I shook my head. "Your name is on nothing. Except forged papers." Lila stepped forward, her smile brittle, her perfume too strong. "Stop this, Clara. No one cares about dusty letters. Just sign the amendment. Be reasonable." I let the brass key rest between my fingers, shining in the lamplight. Dusty papers are stronger than fresh lies. Mark's jaw tightened. He moved closer, lowering his voice. "Where did you get that?" "My grandfather," I said. "He trusted paper more than people. He knew this day would come." Larkin slammed the folder on the table. "Enough games. You sign tonight or you will regret it." I slid out the forged signature from the record and laid it beside the deed. "I already regret this. And when the judge sees this forgery, so will you." His smirk slipped. Lila hissed something under her breath. Mark swore. I met their eyes one by one. "Leave. Now." They stormed out, the slam of the door shaking the walls. I locked it behind them, my hand steady for the first time in weeks. The next morning, I drove to the bank branch listed in my grandfather's letter. The building was old brick with brass handles worn by decades of use. The clerk guided me to the vault. I slid the key into the box. The lock clicked open. Inside was an envelope sealed with brittle wax. I broke it carefully. Out slid a single document, faded but clear. A survivorship deed naming me, Clara Ramsey, as sole owner of 47 Brook Lane. Tears stung my eyes. The house had always been mine. Not his. Not ours. Mine. The clerk asked, "Would you like certified copies, ma'am?" "Yes," I whispered. 3 of them. That afternoon, I sat at the kitchen table with the copies spread like armor. Marianne came over with her steady presence and her grocery bag of bread and milk. She listened without interrupting. Finally she said, "You need a lawyer. A real one." "I cannot afford." "You cannot afford not to," she cut me off. "I will call Evelyn Shaw. She handles estates. She is sharp." 2 hours later, I sat in Evelyn's office. She was calm, her glasses reflecting the light as she studied my binder. "This," she said, tapping the forgery, "is criminal." She tapped the deed. "And this is gold. You are not only defending yourself. You are holding a weapon." Her voice was steady, unshaken. "Do not run. Do not hide. Build. Piece by piece. When they strike again, we will be ready." That evening Mark returned. He looked smaller somehow, but his words were still sharp. "You do not understand," he said. "Lila needed help. Larkin has friends. Dangerous ones. I was protecting us." "By forging my name?" I asked. His lips curled. "We are married. What is yours is mine." I leaned closer. What is mine was always mine. And now I can prove it. Before he could reply, headlights swept the window. Tires crunched the gravel. "Lila." Again. She burst in, her earrings catching the light. "You think this deed saves you? You think a yellow page makes you safe? If you do not sign, we will bury you in court. We will prove you are unstable. We will take everything." Her words cut through me like ice. I stood my ground. "Try. I will be ready." She sneered. "You are alone." I touched the record on the table. The binder was heavy. The deed copies glowed under the lamp. "Not anymore," I said. Her eyes flickered. Just for a moment her smile cracked. She left with a slam, dragging Mark behind her. The next morning Evelyn called. "They filed something new," she said. Her voice was sharp. "It is not about the house anymore. It is about you." My chest tightened. "Me? They have filed a petition for conservatorship. They claim you are unstable, that you cannot manage finances. If the court believes them, Clara, they could strip you of control over everything." The words rang like thunder. Unstable. Incompetent. Helpless. I pressed my hand against the binder. "They want to erase me," I whispered. Evelyn's answer was firm. "Then we will erase their lies first. But you must be ready. This fight will not be clean." That night, I added a new divider to the record. Conservatorship counter evidence. I stared at the pages until my eyes burned. Then I whispered to the empty room. "You will not erase me." The house was mine. My name was mine. And soon the truth would be mine to reveal. The words from Evelyn would not leave me. Unstable. Incompetent. Incapable of managing my own life. That was what they had filed in court. It was not just theft now. It was erasure. I stared at the record on my table. My forged signature. My grandfather's deed. My careful bills and tax slips. It was not enough. I whispered to myself, "If they want war, I will give them one." The next morning I walked to the library. The air smelled of old paper and dust. I sat at the glowing computer screen, hands tight around the mouse. I searched property transfers, loan filings, trust agreements. The same name rose again and again. Larkin. His stamp appeared on too many deals. Always family trusts. Always rushed. I printed every page. The pile grew thick. Then I searched the court dockets. His name surfaced there too. Fraud complaints. Financial disputes. Both settled quietly. I slid those into a new divider. Larkin pattern. The binder grew heavier in my lap. That evening Marianne came by. She brought soup, but her eyes were sharper than her smile. "I spoke with Evelyn," she said. "You need people who will stand up for you. Witnesses. Not just papers. Flesh and blood." "Who would stand for me?" I asked. My voice cracked. "No one has believed me for years." She leaned close. "Start a list." I thought of Dr. Howard, the dentist I had balanced accounts for since forever. I thought of my old neighbor who had watched me shovel driveways every winter while Mark stayed inside. I thought of women from church who teased me for keeping every receipt in neat envelopes. Receipts. That gave me an idea. I went to the closet and pulled down a shoebox I had kept for decades. Inside was order. Rows of utility bills, tax payments, mortgage slips. Year after year. Each in my hand. Mark used to call me obsessive. "You will drown under paper, Clara," he joked. Now that mountain of paper was my fortress. I made a new divider, household management. Every proof that I alone had carried this house. 2 days later, Evelyn called me to her office. She leafed through the new sections of the binder. "This is excellent," she said. "But it will not be enough. We need testimony. We need others to say what these pages prove." "Dear Howard," I whispered. "He trusts me with every dollar in his office. He calls me meticulous." "Perfect," she said. "And Marianne. And any neighbor who remembers your steadiness. If they want to call you unstable, we bury them under decades of order." Her words steadied me. For the first time, the fear began to turn into resolve. That night Mark came back. His eyes were bloodshot, his tie hanging loose. "You think you are clever," he muttered. "Building your binder. Whispering with lawyers. But you will not win. Lila knows people. You will drown in their word." I lifted my head. "Do you know what is stronger than words, Mark?" He sneered. "What?" "Paper. Paper does not forget. Paper does not lie." His eyes flicked to the binder. He said nothing. Then he left, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. 2 evenings later, Marianne drove me to her cousin's house. Evelyn was waiting, and with her a man with gray hair and calm eyes. "This is Mr. Price," Evelyn said. "He examines handwriting. He will study the forgery." I spread the loan page on the table. My name twisted across it like a shadow. He studied it for less than a minute. "Not hers," he said. "Different hand." Different pressure. Whoever did this was careless. Relief poured through me. Would you testify? Evelyn asked. He nodded. Gladly. I added a new divider, forensic report. But the enemy struck again. One morning a knock sounded on my door. A man in a gray suit handed me an envelope. Court papers. A petition for conservatorship. Filed by Lila. Signed by Mark. The words cut deeper than knives. Due to erratic behavior, financial instability, and paranoia, we request that family assume control of her affairs. At the bottom, Lila had scrawled her note in bold hand. Family must step in before she causes harm. I stared at it until my vision blurred. When Marianne came that afternoon, she found me still at the table. They want to erase me, I whispered. She put her hand over mine. Then erase their lies first. I looked down at the binder. Heavy, alive, growing. That night I slid the petition into a new divider. Conservatorship, counter evidence. For every insult they threw I would build proof. For every lie a page of truth. For every betrayal a signature that was mine. Just before midnight my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Court will not matter. People talk. No one will trust you. Sign now before it gets worse. I stared at the words, the glow of the screen burning my eyes. And for the first time instead of fear I felt fury. I whispered into the dark. We will see who the court believes. I placed another blank divider in the binder. The fight had only begun. The petition lay on my table like a death sentence. They wanted me gone. Not just my house. Not just my name. My very right to decide. But I had learned something. Paper was my shield. And people, real people, could be my sword. Evelyn called me early. We move fast, she said. They struck first, but we will answer louder. I want witness statements. Real ones. Neighbors. Employers. Anyone who knows you are steady and responsible. I sat with Marianne that afternoon. She handed me a notepad and a pen. Write names, she said. So I did. Dr. Howard, the dentist who trusted me with his books for more than 15 years. Mrs. Carter, my old neighbor, who always joked I kept every receipt since childhood. The ladies from church who teased me about my careful lists but asked for my advice when their bills piled high. Marian smiled. You see? You are not alone. 2 days later, Evelyn gathered us in her office. Papers covered her desk. We will not only defend, she said. We will build offense. Clara, your binder is our weapon, but people will bring it to life. She listed tasks like a commander. Marianne, collect letters from neighbors. Mr. Price, prepare the handwriting analysis for court. I would meet with Dr. Howard for a sworn statement. Then Evelyn looked at me. And you, Clara, must practice. When they call you unstable, you will look the judge in the eye and answer with calm. I swallowed. What if my voice shakes? Then let it shake, she said. Truth does not need polish. Harper entered the room like a gust of wind. She was a public relations consultant Evelyn had brought in. Short hair, sharp eyes, quick hands. She spread a folder on the table. Headlines. Stories of women erased by their families, women who fought back. Optics matter, she said. We cannot let them define you. You are not paranoid. You are meticulous. You are not fragile. You are resilient. Her voice was like fire. We will shape your story before they twist it. The next week became a blur of preparation. Dr. Howard wrote his letter. Clara Benton is meticulous, steady, and reliable. For more than a decade, she has balanced my accounts without error. She is trusted, capable, and sound. Mrs. Carter wrote too. I have watched Clara manage her home and family. She keeps everything in order. She is the most dependable woman I know. The church ladies added theirs, speaking of my careful nature, my steady hands, my unfailing record-keeping. Each page slid into the record, the binder growing heavier. But there was more. Evelyn wanted me visible. Do not hide, she said. If you hide, they will whisper. If you stand in public, they will falter. So I agreed to Harper's idea. A small seminar at the library. Just one evening. Just neighbors. I stood behind a table and spoke about budgeting, about how to stretch $1, about saving for repairs and medicine. My voice trembled at first but then grew steady. People listened. Some even took notes. Afterward, A reporter from the local paper approached Harper quietly. He had been watching. The next day a small article appeared. Local woman fights back with careful records. Not dramatic. Not scandal. Just truth. It was enough. But the enemy moved too. One evening as I returned home, I found another envelope taped to my door. Inside was a photograph of my grown son at a cafe, smiling with friends. On the back, jagged letters scrawled, "He will not save you." My knees buckled. My breath caught. When I showed Evelyn, her voice was sharp. "This is intimidation. We will file it. It strengthens our case. They are showing the court who they are." Harper's eyes darkened. "We can use this. Their cruelty will turn against them." But in my chest fear flared hot. They were watching not just me. They were watching my child. The night before the hearing we gathered in Evelyn's office. The binder lay open between us like a shield of iron. Evelyn said, "We have affidavits, we have a forensic report, we have character witnesses, and we have intimidation evidence. Tomorrow we will not only defend, we will strike." Marion touched my hand. "And I will be there. With cookies for the waiting room." For the first time in weeks I almost smiled. But then Harper's phone buzzed. She read the message, her face pale. She slid it across the table. It was another threat. This one simple, cruel final. "Tomorrow the court will not save her. Tomorrow she falls." The room fell silent. I looked at the binder. I thought of the deed, the letters, the photos. I thought of my son's smile. And I whispered, steady as stone, "No. Tomorrow I rise." The courthouse loomed like a mountain I was forced to climb. Inside, whispers swirled. Mark and Lila had brought their lawyer, smooth as oil. Larkin sat in the back row, arms folded, eyes watchful. When their lawyer spoke, he dripped with fake concern. "Our family only wants to protect Clara. She is fragile, unstable, prone to paranoia. We love her. That is why we must act." Each word was poison. Each word painted me as helpless. But Evelyn rose next. Calm. Unshaken. She opened the record as if it were scripture. "My client is not unstable. She is meticulous. Here are 30 years of household bills in her hand. Here are tax returns prepared and filed without error. Here are sworn letters from her employer and her neighbors. And here," she lifted the forensic report, "is proof of forgery. Clara did not sign the loan. Someone else did. Someone connected to Larkin." Murmurs rippled through the room. Even the judge leaned forward. I sat straighter. For the first time I felt the weight of truth on my side. Outside, Harper caught my arm. "They will not stop. If we win this, they will pivot. Reputation, finances, rumors, they will use anything." I nodded. My hands were trembling. "Then we do not stop either." Her eyes gleamed. "Exactly. It is time for offense." That night we gathered in Evelyn's office. She drew a line down a yellow pad. On one side, their story. On the other, our plan. Step 1, public voice. Harper said, "We give interviews but carefully. Not to tabloids. To community papers. To women's groups. Clara, you will not be seen as a victim. You will be seen as a woman fighting back." Step 2, financial proof. Evelyn tapped the binder. "We file sworn statements from your employer, from your church friends, from anyone who has trusted you with money. They will call you unstable, but we will drown them in proof of stability." Step 3, pattern of fraud. Mr. Price leaned forward. "Larkin has repeated this trick too many times. The stamps, the sloppy signatures, they all match. A pattern is harder to dismiss than a single mistake." Step 4, courtroom control. Evelyn said, "When they insult you, do not snap. Do not tremble. Look the judge in the eye. Let your calm silence make them look desperate." Step 5, the reveal. I touched the deed from my grandfather. Old, strong, undeniable. Evelyn's eyes glinted. "We keep this hidden until the right moment. If they corner us, we reveal it. And when we do, the entire case collapses beneath them." I went home with a notebook full of tasks. Call Dr. Howard. Collect more letters. Organize the shoebox of receipts. Practice answers for every cruel question their lawyer might throw. At the mirror that night, Mark's voice echoed in my mind. "You do not bring anything, Clara." I whispered back, "I bring everything." The next morning the war widened. An envelope waited on my porch. Inside was a photograph of my son, taken across a parking lot. On the back, jagged writing, "He cannot save you." My knees weakened. I sank onto the step, clutching the paper. When I showed Evelyn, her voice was ice. "Intimidation. We will file it. It will help us. They are digging their own grave." But my heart clenched with fear. If they followed my son, what else would they do? That night I called him. My voice broke as I said, "Please be careful. Do not walk alone. Watch the numbers that call you." He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Mom, I always thought you were just careful. Now I see you are brave. Do not let them take that." Tears burned my eyes. "I will not," I whispered. 2 nights later, Evelyn summoned us again. The binder sat in the center of her desk like a loaded weapon. "We have their fraud. We have witnesses. We have proof of intimidation. At the next hearing we strike. We file a counterpetition. We demand sanctions. We request protective orders." Harper added, "And we hold the press in our pocket. If they smear you, we release the truth. Not with fury but with calm. Calm destroys lies." Marion pressed cookies into my hands like I was a child again. "Eat. You will need strength." For the first time I almost smiled. The morning of the hearing arrived. The courthouse steps were crowded. Cameras glinted like eyes. I adjusted my coat, clutching the record under my arm. Evelyn whispered, "Whatever happens, you hold the truth. Remember that." We walked into the marble hall. Mark stood at the far end, his arm draped over Lila's shoulder. Larkin waited behind them, his smirk wide, his eyes dark. Mark leaned forward as I passed. "Ready to lose, Clara?" I looked straight at him. "No. Ready to win." But as we entered the courtroom, I saw something that froze my blood. In the back row sat a man I had never seen before. A stranger with cold eyes. He held a folder in his lap. And when our eyes met, he smiled. The stranger's smile burned into me as I took my seat. He had the calmness of a man who already knew the ending of a story. I gripped the record tighter. Evelyn leaned close. "Ignore him. Focus on the judge." The hearing began. The judge, a gray-haired woman with sharp eyes, called the case to order. Lila's lawyer stood. His voice oiled through the room. "Your Honor, this is a family matter. Mrs. Benton is not malicious. She is simply unwell. We ask for conservatorship not to punish but to protect." Protect. The word made bile rise in my throat. He held up a paper. "Here we have testimony from neighbors who describe her as isolated, forgetful, and erratic." My heart pounded. I whispered to Evelyn, "Neighbors." She frowned. "Which neighbors?" Then I saw, in the gallery, 2 faces I knew well. Mr. and Mrs. Dawson. They had lived 3 doors down for 20 years. They smiled at me on Sundays. They had waved at me while I shoveled snow. Now their heads were bowed, their signatures on the page. I felt the room spin. Evelyn rose. Her voice was firm. "We have affidavits from Dr. Howard, from Mrs. Carter, from church members who rely on Mrs. Benton's meticulous care. We also have a forensic report proving her husband submitted fraudulent signatures. We submit all of this into the record." The judge nodded, but the stranger in the back row leaned forward. He opened his folder, and for the first time I saw what lay inside. Bank statements. Not mine. Not Mark's. My son's. My throat closed. The stranger whispered something to Larkin. Larkin smirked, then handed a note to their lawyer. Moments later, that lawyer stood again. "Your Honor, new information has come to light. We have reason to believe Mrs. Benton's son has been funding her so-called independence. Without him, she would be destitute. She is not stable. She is being propped up." A ripple spread through the courtroom. Gasps, whispers, pen scratching. I shook my head. "No," I whispered. "That is not true." But I had no proof ready. No divider in my binder to fight this new lie. The judge raised her brow. "Do you have documentation to respond, Mrs. Benton?" Evelyn's hand pressed mine. "Stay calm," she mouthed. I swallowed. My voice came out thin. "I have managed myself for decades. I saved every receipt, paid every bill, kept every record. I am not a burden on anyone." But the doubt was in the air now. The stranger had planted it. During recess we huddled in a side room. Harper's face was pale. They are changing the story. They are not just saying you are unstable. They are saying you are dependent. That is harder to untangle in the public eye. Evelyn's jaw was tight. We need to strike back. We need something bigger than affidavits. Marian touched my shoulder. The deed, she whispered. Evelyn shook her head. Not yet. If we play it too soon, they will scramble. We need timing. I slammed my fist softly against the table. They dragged my son into this. They followed him. They photographed him. And now they are using his name to crush me. Harper leaned in. Then use that. Do not hide it. Expose them. Tell the judge about the threats, the photos, the intimidation. If they want to talk about your son, show what they did to him. The room was tense, the air heavy with fear and fury. When court resumed, Evelyn stood. She held up the photographs of my son that had been slid under my door. Your Honor, if they want to talk about family, let us talk honestly. My client's son has not been funding her. He has been targeted, followed, and threatened. By whom? By the very people who filed this petition. The courtroom buzzed. The judge lifted her hand for silence. Mrs. Benton, she said, do you have proof of this intimidation? Evelyn nodded. We have the photographs. We have the envelopes. We have the messages. The judge leaned back. Then submit them. I slid the envelope forward with shaking hands. The judge studied it, her lips pressed thin. The stranger in the back row never moved. He only smiled again. The session ended without a ruling. The judge wanted more time. She wanted more evidence. We filed out into the marble hall, my legs trembling. Reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. Harper guided me past them with a firm hand. Outside, the air was sharp, the sky heavy with clouds. I thought the day was over. But as we reached the parking lot, I saw it. My Buick. Old Faithful, rust on the door. Its windows smashed. Glass scattered across the asphalt. And on the front seat, a single page. In red marker, sign or he pays. I dropped the page. My voice cracked. They are going after my son. Marian caught me as my knees gave way. Evelyn grabbed the note with gloved hands. Harper was already dialing the police. And across the lot, leaning against a black car, the stranger lit a cigarette. His smile gleamed through the smoke. The red page burned in my hands. Sign or he pays. They had dragged my son into the fire. That was the line I would never let them cross. Evelyn sealed the note in an evidence bag. This goes to the judge. This is criminal intimidation. But I shook my head. Words are not enough. They will keep pushing until I stop them myself. Marian gripped my arm. Clara, do not do something reckless. I looked her in the eye. I will not. I will do something precise. That night I laid out the record across my dining table. The binder was thick as stone now. Bills. Affidavits. The forensic report. Witness letters. Photographs of threats. And in the center, untouched until this moment, lay my grandfather's deed. Yellowed. Faded. Unbreakable. The ace Evelyn told me to keep hidden. I ran my hand over it. Tomorrow, I whispered. Tomorrow they will learn. The next morning the courthouse steps were crowded again. Reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. Harper leaned close. Remember, a calm smile cuts deeper than rage. Show them you are steady. Inside, the judge called us forward. Evelyn rose first, her voice clear. Your Honor, my client has endured fraud, forgery, and intimidation. She has been accused of instability, yet she alone has carried 30 years of household order. Today we present final proof. She opened the binder. The room stilled. But Lila's lawyer jumped in fast and smooth. Your Honor, before we drown in her paper, may I introduce something new? He snapped his fingers. The stranger in the back row stood, folder in hand. My chest tightened. The lawyer said, this man has documents that show Mrs. Benton's house was pledged years ago to cover debts. Debts her husband carried, yes, but debts she allowed. This proves she cannot manage property. Gasps rippled. The stranger walked forward. He laid bank slips on the table. Lines of ink I had never seen. Mark's eyes gleamed. Lila smirked. Larkin folded his arms. For a moment I faltered. What if the judge believed this? Evelyn whispered. Hold. The judge scanned the slips, her brow furrowing. Mrs. Benton, do you recognize these? I rose slowly. My knees trembled but my voice was steady. No, Your Honor. I do not. And I know why. I turned to the courtroom. I lifted the yellow deed from my folder. The paper caught the light like a blade. This, I said, is the true record. Recorded decades ago in my maiden name. This house was never Mark's. It was never pledged. It was mine before he signed a single check. Gasps again. Louder this time. The judge leaned forward. Do you have certification? Yes. I slid forward the 3 certified copies the bank clerk had made. Seals shone in the light. Lila's face blanched. Mark's mouth fell open. The stranger's smile thinned. Evelyn's voice cut like steel. Your Honor, these slips are forgeries. They could not exist because the property was never his to pledge. What my client presents is original, notarized, and certified. This is not just defense. This is proof of deliberate fraud by the petitioners. The courtroom exploded with whispers. Reporters scribbled furiously. The judge lifted her gavel. Silence. She studied the deed again. This document predates your marriage? Yes, I said. My grandfather left it to me. He told me to trust paper more than promises. The judge set the deed down carefully. She looked at Lila's lawyer, then at the stranger. I want explanations. Now. But they had none. Recess was called. The hall swarmed with noise. Marian hugged me tight, whispering, You did it. You turned their knife against them. But Harper's face was pale. Not yet. They are cornered. Cornered people bite. She was right. As we stepped outside for air, a commotion broke out near the courthouse steps. Reporters shouted. Security rushed forward. In the center of the crowd stood Larkin, red-faced, his voice booming. She forged that deed herself, he bellowed. She is the liar. She is stealing from this family. Cameras snapped. Microphones shoved forward. Before Evelyn could stop me, I stepped up onto the stone step, my voice rising above his. You say I forged? Then explain this. I held the certified copies high. 3 seals. 3 signatures. 3 records. If I forged, then so did the county, so did the notary, so did the bank. The crowd gasped. Reporters shouted questions. Larkin's face twisted with fury. He lunged forward, shouting, She will not get away with this. Security grabbed him. Reporters caught every second. And in that chaos I turned. The stranger was gone. Only the scent of smoke lingered in the air. That night, as I sat in my kitchen, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Nice move with the deed. But pieces of paper cannot stop what is coming. Tomorrow you will lose more than property. Tomorrow you will lose everything. The screen glowed red in the dark. And my hand tightened around the record. The courthouse steps were still buzzing when we left. Reporters shouted my name. Microphones thrust forward. I had never been a headline in my life. Now I was walking through flashes and noise, clutching the record like a shield. Evelyn guided me down the stairs. Do not answer them, she murmured. Every word can be twisted. But the crowd pressed closer. Mrs. Benton, how did you get the deed? Are you accusing your husband of fraud? Was your son involved in the transfers? I stopped cold at that last question. My son. They had dragged him into this again. Harper pulled me forward. Keep moving, she hissed. Behind us, Mark shouted, his voice cracking. She is lying. She forged everything. His words carried, but the cameras caught more than his voice. They caught his rage. His spit. His eyes burning wild. Marian whispered. They see him now. They see the truth. That evening the news ran the footage. Clara Benton calm, holding paper sealed in gold. Mark Benton red-faced, screaming at reporters. Larkin dragged by security. Lila pale and silent. The anchors used words I had not heard in years. Resilient, meticulous, courageous. But not everyone was cheering. My phone buzzed through the night with hidden numbers. Messages hissed through the dark. Paper will not save you. Judges fall. Families stay. Tomorrow, Clara. Tomorrow you break. I turned the phone face down and whispered. No. Tomorrow you break. The next day the courthouse was even more crowded. Security doubled. Cameras multiplied. Inside, the judge entered with a face like carved stone. She held the deed in her hand. "We have verified this record. Certified. Original. Authentic." She turned to Mark. "Your counsel will explain why you filed claims against property that was never yours." Mark stammered. His lawyer's words tangled. Lila sat rigid, her eyes darting. Larkin glared, silent. The judge's gaze swept to me. "Mrs. Benton, do you wish to make a statement?" I rose. My voice was clear. "For years I was told I brought nothing. That I was unstable. That I was worthless. But this paper proves otherwise. I carried this home. I carried this family. And I will not be erased." The courtroom buzzed. Cameras clicked. The judge lifted her gavel. "Enough for today. This matter will continue." She rose and the room dissolved into chaos. Outside, Harper's phone rang. She listened, then her face blanched. "The story is everywhere," she whispered. "Every paper. Every channel. Some call you a heroine. Some call you a fraud. You are no longer invisible, Clara. You are fire." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "Which means they will not rest until they try to extinguish you." As we stepped onto the courthouse steps, a car screeched to a stop at the curb. A black sedan. Windows tinted. The back door swung open. The stranger stepped out. Calm. Smiling. His eyes fixed on me. The crowd hushed. Even the reporters froze. He spoke loudly enough for every microphone to catch. "This woman is no victim. She is a thief. She has stolen from her husband, from her family, from every person who trusted her." Gasps. Shouts. Cameras flashing like lightning. Evelyn hissed, "Do not answer. He is baiting you." But my blood boiled. I stepped forward, binder in hand. "I have stolen nothing. I have carried everything." The stranger's smile widened. He lifted a folder from under his arm. "Then explain this." He opened it. Pages fluttered. Bank slips. Transfers. And one check. My son's name. My handwriting. Reporters shouted, voices overlapping. The judge was gone. The cameras were not. And the stranger held his false proof high, grinning at the chaos. My knees weakened. My voice caught. What if even the people who believed me began to doubt? Marion gripped my hand. "Do not fall, Clara. Not here." But in the roar of the crowd I saw Mark's face. Smiling. Triumphant. And for the first time fear whispered, "What if they win?" The morning light did not bring peace. It brought headlines. Widow or fraud. Heroine or thief. Some papers showed me holding the deed high, steady, and calm. Others printed the stranger's folder. The check with my son's name scrawled across it. I held the newspaper in my kitchen, hands shaking. "They are trying to bury me again," I whispered. Marion poured coffee, her eyes fierce. "They are desperate. That is what this is. They want the world to believe their lies before the court sees the truth." Evelyn called at dawn. "Do not speak to reporters. Do not answer calls. We prepare. That forged check is their final card. We will cut it to pieces." But in my chest fear twisted. Because the check was not sloppy. It was clean. My handwriting copied almost perfectly. By midday the phone rang non-stop. Some calls were cruel. "You thief. You liar. Pay back what you stole." Others were kind. "We believe you, Clara. Stand tall." The noise was endless. Then a message came that froze me. A photo of my son again. Taken through the window of his apartment. The curtains half closed, his back turned. The words below. "Paper cannot protect him." I dropped the phone. My knees buckled. Marion caught me. Evelyn drove over within the hour. She sealed the phone in an evidence bag. "Every threat strengthens our case," she said. "But I will not pretend. They are escalating. They want to break you before the ruling." That night, Harper arrived with her laptop. "Listen," she said. "If they smear you in the press, we drown them in another story. I have contacts. I can push the narrative of intimidation. Mothers threatened. Sons followed. A widow fighting not for money, but for safety." I shook my head. What if people believe the stranger's proof? What if they think I forged that check? Harper's eyes blazed. Then we show them what they do not expect. We show them the pattern, the same stamps, the same sloppiness, Larkin's trail. And if that fails, we go bigger. We bring witnesses into the light. We turn their attack into their humiliation. Her words lit a fire in me. The next day, Evelyn spread papers across her desk. I subpoenaed banking records. We have trail after trail. Clara, that check cannot survive scrutiny. But we need more. We need to show motive. She tapped the deed. Your house was never theirs. That alone cost them dearly. If they lose this case, they lose access to everything they wanted. That is why they forged more documents. That is why they dragged your son in. I whispered. They will not stop until they see me in the ground. Evelyn's eyes sharpened. Then we stopped them first. That evening I sat alone at my table. The binder was heavier than ever. Dividers thick. My grandfather's deed glowing under the lamp. I opened a fresh divider. I labeled it Stranger. Because he was the shadow behind this storm. His folder, his smile, his sudden arrival. He was not just helping them. He was leading them. I whispered to the empty room. Who are you? The window rattled softly. The night pressed close. For a moment I swore I saw a figure across the street watching. By morning Evelyn had news. The judge has scheduled a final session. Tomorrow. One last hearing before a ruling. Marian gasped. So soon? Yes, Evelyn said. Which means they will strike hard today. Expect lies. Expect rumors. Expect fear. They will try to break you before the gavel falls. The air in the room grew heavy. Tomorrow. The end of everything. Harper leaned forward. Then today we move first. We leak the threats. We leak the photos. We show the world what they are. If they want a war of reputation, we will not whisper, we will shout. Evelyn nodded slowly. Agreed. But Clara, it must be your choice. If we do this, there is no going back. Your face will be everywhere. I closed my eyes. I saw my son's smile, blurry in that cruel photograph. I saw Mark's smirk, Lila's cold eyes, Larkin's greedy hands, the stranger's smoke curling through the air. I opened them again. My voice was steady. Do it. Show them everything. That afternoon, Harper pressed send. Within hours, the internet burned. Widow under siege. Threatened for her home. Family betrayal, forged papers, intimidation. The story shifted. Sympathy poured in. Letters. Emails. Messages of support from strangers. But so did the threats. Darker now. Angrier. And then just before dusk, a new message arrived. A photo of the courthouse doors. The words scrawled across it. Tomorrow is the end. For you. I clutched the record to my chest. My hands shook, but my voice whispered steady. Tomorrow is the end. But not for me. The courthouse was silent when I walked in. No shouting this time. No cameras pushing too close. The silence was heavier than noise. I clutched the record to my chest. The weight of it steadied me. Marian held my arm. Evelyn carried her briefcase like a sword. Harper walked just behind, her eyes scanning the crowd. Mark was already inside. His face pale, jaw tight. Lila whispered to him, her nails biting into his sleeve. Larkin sat stiff, his stamp in his pocket, his eyes darting. And in the back row, the stranger waited, smoke still clinging to his coat. The judge entered. Sharp eyes, steady gavel. This is the final session. Present your cases. Their lawyer rose first. His words poured out like oil, but they no longer slid smooth. Your Honor, Mrs. Benton has lived in confusion. She claims stability, yet she is propped up by her son. She waives papers, but we present proof, bank slips, transfers, signatures. He held up the forged check again. This alone proves she cannot be trusted. Murmurs rippled through the room. I felt my knees weaken. Then Evelyn stood. Her voice cut like glass. Your Honor, this so-called proof is nothing but another forgery. And we can prove it. She held up 2 sheets. One was the forged check. The other, a certified record subpoenaed from the bank itself. Compare them, she said. One is sloppy imitation. The other is the truth. And the truth tells a different story. These funds were never hers. They were debts paid by Mark Benton himself. Gambling debts. Buried under lies. The courtroom erupted. The judge slammed her gavel. Order. Evelyn pressed on. She opened the record. 30 years of bills, every one in her hand. Taxes filed without flaw. Letters from employers, neighbors, friends. A forensic report proving forgery. Threats sent to her son. Photographs of intimidation. And most important, she lifted the yellowed paper. The original deed. This house never belonged to Mark Benton. It never belonged to Lila. It belonged to Clara before this marriage and belongs to her still. The judge studied the deed again. Slowly, carefully. Silence filled the room. Finally she spoke. This document is authentic. The forgery is proven. The threats are documented. Mrs. Benton is not unstable. She is resilient. She is the rightful owner of 47 Brook Lane. My breath caught. The judge's gavel struck. Petition denied. Fraud referred for criminal investigation. Gasps. Shouts. Cameras flashing. I closed my eyes. For the first time in months the storm broke. Chaos erupted. Mark shouted, his voice ragged. This is a trick. She stole from me. From all of us. Security moved in. Lila clawed at his arm, screaming. Larkin shoved toward the door, his face drained. And in the back row the stranger stood. Our eyes locked. His smile was gone. He turned and slipped out before security reached him. Outside the air was sharp and cold. Reporters swarmed. Microphones pressed forward. How do you feel, Mrs. Benton? What will you do now? I lifted the record. My voice carried steady. I will live. I will protect what is mine. And I will never be erased again. The crowd erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. Marianne's hand squeezed mine. You did it. You brought everything. That night I sat in my kitchen. The binder rested on the table, thick with truth. My son called. His voice was tight with relief. Mom, it is over. Yes, I whispered. It is over. But even as I said it, I remembered the stranger's eyes. The message he had left. Paper cannot protect you. I knew there would be shadows ahead. But tonight I had one. Tonight they had lost. I placed the deed back inside the binder and closed it with steady hands. My grandfather's words echoed in my heart. Trust paper more than promises. And he had been right. Paper had saved me. My name is Clara Benton. They tried to strip me of my name, my home, my sanity. They forged my hand, threatened my child, smeared my reputation. But I stood. I gathered proof. I found allies. I carried the weight of truth until the truth carried me. If you are listening to my story, remember this. Betrayal cuts deep. Lies spread fast. Humiliation burns. But resilience can outlast it all. Never let them erase you. Build your record. Guard your truth. Stand tall. Because sometimes the best revenge is not fire. Sometimes the best revenge is paper.